Hello, my name's Nathan Leahy and welcome to Next Week in Gaming. So the first thing I want to mention next week is that I got an email a couple of days ago offering me a 25% off voucher for Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, and that's because it's part of this most anticipated titles of 2016 thing that Green Man Gaming have got going on. Now this is a small selection of AAA games, including stuff like XCOM, Total War, Warhammer, Far Cry Primal, Tomb Raider, and of course Dragon's Dogma, which I mentioned earlier, and a bunch of other games that are all coming out in 2016 that are available for pre-order. Now this most anticipated 2016 deal thing is that you get 25% off as a promotion off if you pre-order the title. Now I know there's a lot of people that are against pre-ordering. I'm one of those people, but I know there are people out there who exist that are simply going to buy a game if it's part of a franchise because they know they're going to like it, they know they're going to play it, and they're not really bothered about reviews. So this is mainly for you or for people who think that they can possibly be won over by a 25% discount, because 25% is a reasonable chunk off a AAA title, especially considering how much they cost these days. So, you know, it's definitely worth a look. There's quite a reasonable size list if you want to go over and check out the original link in the main article. Our first title is releasing sometime in Q1 2016, although if the placement in the Steam's upcoming is to be believed, then it could be relatively soon. This is a title by Subaltern Games, a bit of a weird name, but this is called No Pineapple Left Behind, also a bit of a weird game. Now, when you listen to the title of this game, it makes sense, but at the same time, you probably wouldn't expect it to be a satirical, gamified version of the education system. Now, this is a bizarre-looking title, and it's all about running schools. Now, it's set across 9 different schools, and you'll be managing those, and the purpose is to, you know, meet expectations, the government's expectations, what grade you should be getting, and not go bankrupt, basically, because if your students get bad grades, you lack funding, and then you go bankrupt, and the school has to shut down. Now, this game obviously is all about pineapples for some reason. So children have needs, desires, wants, all these crazy things that make people complicated, and that can occasionally mean that they don't do so well in grades, and it's in your best interest for them to get good grades. So what you can do is you can change those children into pineapples. Now all pineapples do is take tests and get grades. So the whole purpose of this game is for you to have a first-hand look at how ludicrous some of the targets are in the educational system, how difficult it is to meet some of these targets, even when you are dealing with not children but in fact pineapples. So you'll have to deal with all sorts of underpaid staff, unreasonable expectations, targets, angry parents, the whole works. And you know, it is kind of a realistic portrayal of education in a weird kind of way. Obviously it's quite far-fetched and some parts are outstretched, although you would be surprised how ridiculous the education system is. I have worked in education for about 7 years, so I know firsthand just how crazy things get in schools, for not just the students but the staff and, you know, the main people running it as well. So it's quite an amusing looking title, very, very strange, but definitely well worth a look if you're interested in something slightly satirical, and if you just want to manage a school full of pineapples. Our next title releases on Tuesday the 19th of January. It's by Phosphor Games, and this is called Gemini Heroes Reborn. Now I'm just going to very quickly make an initial impression of when I looked at the gameplay trailer, and it is reminiscing of Half-Life. Now I'm not saying that this is a wonderful extra sort of piece of Half-Life stuff and that you should go and play it because it's going to be the best game ever and it's what anyone wanted ever, but I'm just saying that there are lots of key elements in this game that look like it's sort of a Half-Life direction of things. So it's a first-person platformer, explorer, adventure type game. You can actually see your own feet, which is nice when you point the camera down, and you play this main character who has a couple of special powers, and you can jump in between past and present, similar to Elizabeth's power in Bioshock Infinite. And you also have a couple of abilities like some stopping bullets and moving objects, very similar to the gravity gun, and there's a lot of first-person platforming, puzzle jumping as well. So as you can see, if you just take a look at the gameplay trailer, you can see why I've got this slight impression of Half-Life. Now the graphics look reasonably decent. If you pay very close attention to some of the animations in the actual gameplay trailer, it does look a little bit rough around the edges. Visually it looks quite impressive, but you can see the animation is not quite 100% polished, so it's not quite Bioshock level, but you know, Half-Life, for all its amazing qualities, it was quite a rough game around the edges, and it was quite blunt in the way that it did a lot of things. So this could potentially be a really awesome adventure game for everyone to get into, particularly if you have just decided that Half-Life 3 isn't coming out, which probably isn't. Go ahead and take a look at it, because it looks like it could be pretty fantastic, and it may have a pretty great storyline to back it up as well. Also coming out on Tuesday the 19th of January by Ace Team is the Deadly Tower of Monsters. Now this is a game I've been keeping my eye on for a little while because it's just my sort of thing. It's quite nice. It's an isometric... I don't know how to describe it. Basically, you're playing some characters who are being currently directed through a B-movie. Now, you're not necessarily playing a game, you're playing a B-movie which is currently being commentated over by the director who made the film like 100 years ago or something. And so you play a couple of different characters. There's a male, a female, and a really awesome robot that looks like a toy straight out of the 60s. Tons of different enemies which will all be animated by like claymation. There's a stop-motion gorilla whose hands are like animated with giant poles and sticks. The levels are stretched across this ginormous tower, which you'll always get like these visual cues that you're on a slightly higher level of the tower as you go through the game. Definitely take a look at the gameplay trailer because it looks absolutely fantastic. And there's tons of skills, tons of items, and loads of different enemies. And it just looks like good, solid fun with quite a lot of tongue-in-cheek humour, quite potentially dry humour, but still looks reasonably good. And hopefully we'll be doing a review of it sometime soon. Releasing on Wednesday the 20th of January is Blackbird Interactive's Homeworld Deserts of Kharak. Now this is a prequel to the original Homeworld series. It is an RTS, and to be fair, jumping into the RTS genre right now is pretty damn hard if you're not already sort of welded in there with a big name, which Deserts of Kharak does have the Homeworld title slapped on it. Then you're kind of up against some of those big heavyweights like Supreme Commander, StarCraft, Total Annihilation, Total War, all those sorts of things. So this game really does have to be quite good in order to punch through all of those and sell itself. But it has that Homeworld storyline that's backing it up, has the Homeworld name, and hopefully it's going to have the content and just some unique gameplay style. It already does look pretty fantastic, and a lot of stuff from Homeworld has very easily inspired a lot of people. I know it inspired me with my first book, particularly with the way that the large moving bases worked. And it's just an awesome series, and hopefully Deserts of Kharak will continue the great stuff that we did see from the original Homeworld and Homeworld 2 and their remasterings as well. So we will hopefully be reviewing this sometime soon, depending on how game keys get sent and what dates they lie on. So look out for that one as well. So our review for next week is kind of up in the air at the moment. Basically, I've been told I'll be getting a review key for the Deadly Tower of Monsters, Homeworld Deserts of Kharak, and I also currently have Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen in my library waiting to be played, perhaps reviewed. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been given a whole lot of communication other than your keys will arrive later next week, and it's now next week. It's very late. It's Saturday, for goodness sake, and I still haven't heard anything yet. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to review whoever sends me the key first, but if no key is sent before the end of today, basically, because Saturday is one of my main review chunk times, then I will end up doing Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Although I do really hope I can get into Deadly Tower of Monsters or the new Homeworld title, preferably this week, but I will probably push them over the next couple of weeks, depending on when we get their keys. So I don't know when it's all going to lie. I'll update this article as and when stuff happens, so it could be any one of those three, but we will be doing a review of those three games in the coming weeks, so you will see them eventually. That's it from us at NextPowerUp. Join us next week on Thursday for our weekly review of whatever the hell it's going to be. And of course next week on Saturday for our next Week in Gaming. Let us know what you've been playing in the comments section below. I took a couple of days off earlier this week to get some extra review stuff done. And just because I had some holiday I needed to take. Ended up with a new cat who then bit me on the finger, which is now slightly infected. And so I couldn't play games for 2 days, which was a bit of a bummer, especially as I'd taken those 2 days off to just play some games. But I did manage to get into Heroes of the Storm, because bizarrely you don't really have to left click that much. Anyway, that's it from us. Hope to see you guys next week, and hope you enjoyed this episode.